Yeah, welcome back. Welcome back. Yeah, we are here. This is part two of the Will This podcast. Yes, it is. I'm going to tell you. Well, first of all, welcome to the Will This podcast. Absolutely. This is part two of the WIP Double Standard America show. And I got Dr. A.E. Dixon with me just to clean up some empty spaces. You dig? So check it out. Yeah. So go ahead, doctor. Go ahead, doctor. Go ahead, introduce yourself real quick so we can get to these. We can go do a. We're gonna do a recap of whip moments and what I've covered, and then we're gonna go into the second half of the whip moments of what I've called your expertise in for tonight. So check it out. Go ahead and introduce yourself, good sir.
Introduce myself. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I am Anthony
Got new
Dixon.
subscribers. We over 20,000. 20,000 subscribers, 21,000. So we got to introduce ourselves over again to our new people. Get them to watch our previous shows and stuff. So give them
Okay.
some love.
My name is Dr. Anthony Dixon. I am a public historian. My background has always been in history, uh, particularly African American, African, and African diaspora history. I am also um, I'm also an archivist. I also work with libraries and museums. And as part of my public history, I do documentaries and films as well. So basically, what I do is take the academic information that I have researched, studied, learned over the years, and I bring it to the public. And I put it in public spaces, whether it's through museums and exhibits, making sure that material culture, documents, things of that nature are archived correctly and prepared so people can come in and read it themselves. And then I move into what we call edutainment, where I do documentaries and films that discuss or basically highlight positive things in Black history and culture.
Awesome.
Yeah,
That's wonderful. And the
it's a,
entertainment side is hanging out with people like me, silly old people like me that like to read and like to read a lot of books and do genealogy, self discovery, all of those wonderful things that I have time to do because I think there's nothing better than understanding how to rediscover yourself to become a better being. That's why this show tonight is about understanding how there's an underlying underpinning, society that I'm from. I'm from the deep south. So it's my brother Dr. AE. We from the deep south. You see what I'm saying? I'm from Pensacola, Florida. Dr. AE, where you from?
I am originally from Fort Valley, Georgia.
Fort Valley, Georgia. See, people know about that place in the South, college, a big college town, stuff like that. But so, you know, to go back into understanding the double standards of America, we went into the culture. We're gonna, hey, you gonna sum this up because I gave about a good 30 something minute rundown, maybe about 30 minutes on it. So I want to give you a good rundown. I'll give you the quick flash whip moments so you can sum them up and give us a good old synopsis, and then we'll move into the next segment of the whip moments that we're gonna clean up together. How that sound?
Okay, sound like a plan, brother. Sound like
All
a plan.
right, so here we go, real hard and heavy. The culture of lying. Do as I say, not as I do. Believing in your own bullshit. Okay. Accepting what people tell you. Oh my gosh. Chaos is the way for the scavenger, rooted in contradiction and fabrication. Contrarians are not intelligent, they are idiots. All right, next one is we need to rehabilitate from accepting your failure or failed leadership of denial, delusion, deception. incompetence, and corruption. Let's. I want you to, compress those moments into your own articulate uh, fashion of uh, what's applicable to those standouts as to how America has double standards.
Yeah, I should have written all that down, brother. You gave more than a mouthful there. I'll start with the
All
damn
right.
standards. And
We,
then,
we, 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 let's start with okay. I'm run through them again, and I want you to compress them.
okay.
All right. The culture of lying. Do as I say, not as I do. Believing in your own bullshit. Yeah. Oh, sure. Uh, Accepting what people tell you, not what you have discovered for yourself. Let's add some girth to that one.
All right.
Chaos is the way for the scavenger. Let's deal with them right there. Yeah.
All
All
right.
right.
Again, you'll have to excuse me there. I'm catching a summer cold, I guess. But let's start with the culture of life first, right?
The culture of lying. Lying.
Culture of lying. Oh well, that's a good one there. We could tie that definitely tie that one into double standards together, right?
Yeah.
Because
The culture of lying, not life. We understand what life is. This is culture of lying that ties into the double standards. Absolutely.
okay,
For sure.
well, when we I like to start large and synthesize down, right?
Sure.
So when we look at how things have developed in quote unquote modern times, right?
Hmm.
What we realize is that we have a certain group of people who have done everything they could to make sure that their culture remains the dominant culture and that they continue to have the advantages in life and that they are not willing to have everything on an even keel or a distribution where everyone can can have that ability to succeed or even have that ability to have a certain standard of living, right? And so the double standards, when we synthesize it down to this country, right? We go back to what we always end up having to go back to, which is what we always, well, not always, but we oftentimes discuss, right? Because it comes back to the roots. And that root is the two seeds, right? The seed of racism and the seed of classism, right? And so what we are understanding when we understand what this thing with double standards, right? These are simply the mechanisms, right? This double standard is the mechanism in which they continue to have the lifestyle and the dominance that they continue to enjoy. through racism and through classism, right? And
Absolutely.
so
Yes,
the
indeed.
double standard is there's a stark difference, and we talked about this before as well, that stark difference between the theoretical and the practical, right?
Absolutely.
Theoretically, this country has said all types of beautiful principles, right? Of equality and all of these different things, but the practical application thereof has been totally different, right? We've had
Absolutely.
second class citizenship, we've had enslavement, we've had segregation, um, we've had specific policies against specific people, not just black people. We had the Chinese exclusion, the Chinese exclusion law.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
Child Exclusion Act. Yeah,
right,
absolutely.
had all of these different types of things that demonstrate this double standard, right? And
Yes,
so when we look at our primary double standard for this country, it comes primarily through a mixture of both racism and classism. But classism, um, in our modern times, has now been just as equally applied, right? And the double
absolutely.
standards through classism is just it's it is now is far worse. I want to say this: it's far worse than when we actually went through the Gilded Age, right? The Gilded
Oh,
Age was
absolutely.
that time when the wealthy stopped feeling bad about being wealthy, right?
Hmm.
And they started flaunting their wealth, and they started making a bigger separation between themselves and what they considered commoners, right? And so
Absolutely.
now we see this gap being just outwardly exposed and outwardly put out there. They're not making any bones about it, and it's getting to the point where we actually are moving toward a society of have and have-nots, right? And so the
Absolutely.
standard that I think is the most egregious and the most outward, right? And the one that I think exposed the United States to the rest of the world, where the United States could no longer put on a farce to the world. And that is the election of Donald Trump, right? And the reason I say that is because the entire world knew that this man had been convicted on 30 something felonies in his 70s after he had already been president once. And so when United States elected this man president, right?
Hmm.
We showed the rest of the world that it is truly all about money in this country. And that is what we truly care about. That we have in this country laws set in place and policies set in place where people cannot even go into certain professions with a felony. Yet we elected a president to the highest office in the land,
Highest order.
right? With
Uh
all
huh.
these felonies. So we've shown the world that all of that talk that we do is just theoretical, it's just talk. And that it only applies, right, to certain people. It's that double standard. And that double standard was glaring at that point, right? That um, even with the military, right? Even with the military, you can't go into the military branches with all of these different felonies. Yet, our chief over the military has 34 of them himself. But the young man 1920 who made a mistake last year, who's now 21, made a mistake when he was just turning 20 good, wants to turn his life around. But no, you can't go in the military. You can't do these things. But we told the world that the person that is over our military, they can have as many felonies as they want. You see, that's that double standard, right? And so the other mechanism, right, is this development of the culture of lying, right? Meaning that anything that is going to contradict or advance the disposition of white American culture being the dominant culture is going to be sought out and is going to be it's going to have pushback, right? Plain and simple, it's
Sure.
going to have pushback. And
Absolutely.
so, in order to continue that dominance and continue to have the advantages thereof, they have no problem with creating a full culture of these lies, right? And we see
Absolutely.
all types. We just saw again. I'm going to use him again because he's the most egregious right now. It is what it is. Trump just invited the president of South Africa and sat there with misinformation, false information, and flat out lies. And the president of South Africa sat there nice and calmly and let him set a full trap for himself and tell all of those lies and then disproved each one of them, right? And then here's the thing now, they just had a uh, press secretary meeting, right?
Absolutely.
In
Yeah, they
which
did.
one of the reporters asked them about it, and not they didn't backtrack. They didn't say we made a mistake. They didn't say we went off of bad information. They doubled down on the lie. They sat right there and doubled down on the lie. So it was one of them, it was so ridiculous to me, brother. It reminded me of that joke Eddie Murphy used to have, right? Where the guy gets caught cheating and he was like, wasn't me. Wasn't me. Who you gonna believe? Me or your lying eyes? Wasn't me.
But that's the
And
thing, hiding shit in plain sight, right?
they
Just
believe, but see, that's the
just
whole thing.
do shit in your face. Play in
That's
your
the whole
face.
culture of lying, though. They truly have gotten to the point where they not only believe, but they're going to go with that mantra that if they tell the lie enough times, then at some point it's going to become the truth. And so they just keep lying, they keep doubling down. And that's the real culture and the real, you know, theoretical thing behind that culture of lying, right? Is that if you keep telling it enough times, right? If you
Yeah.
work to get rid of all the things that would be contradictory towards it, then that lie will be in place and it will be seen as the truth, right? And let's face it,
So
it's been done, right? They have they claim that they went through Europe, went through a dark age. They ain't go through a dark ages. They just were not in power. Black people were in power. Moors were in power. So instead of saying we in Europe were run by blacks and black culture, they just said, "Oh no, we were in a dark age." You see, and they have been able to bury the information that contradicts that lie. But they were only able to bury it for some time. The truth is now coming out, right? And so In this age of information, right? In this age of information,
Just to verify.
it makes it just that more ridiculous that they will keep doubling down. They'll keep doubling down because they are all in. They are 10 toes deep on this idea that if we continue to tell this lie enough times, then it will become the truth. You know, and they've done the other tactics to support that, right? They tried it, it failed. That idea of calling these things alternative facts, right? But I mean, common sense. They couldn't get past that with common sense, right? There is no such thing as an alternative fact. It is either a fact or it is not. You know, there's no alternative to a fact. The only alternative to a fact is a lie. Plain and simple. That's the only alternative. A lie. And so this whole culture of lying, again, and I move right on, is based on the idea that if you continue to tell this lie enough times, then it will become a fact. Now, this whole thing is do as I say, not as I do. I want to hit that on two levels, right? I want to hit it on a
Do it.
personal level because this is what we have all grown up with, right? Our parents have said that, um, do as I said, not as I do, because I'm an adult. You're not an adult. That means I can do things you cannot do. And I do things for a reason that you do not have the luxury of because you don't have the age, the experience, and the wisdom, right? And so that does work to a certain degree. But there are times when it doesn't as well, because
Right.
you as adults have to set the standard and you have to not only give the standard theoretically, but you have to practically live it as well if you want that standard to be a part of your child's life. So you can't just say, do as I say, not as I do. You have to emulate some of those standards that you want to set. Now, that's on the personal level. Now, when we're talking about society, right? We have lots of things in society where people, the wealthy, would like people to do, right, as they say, but not as they do, right? In other words, the wealthy expects the middle class to carry the brunt and pay the taxes for all of these different things, and they even enjoy some of the benefits of the middle class taxes. But the wealthy don't want to pay taxes. You see, there it is. You go do as I say. We gonna have the politicians stress taxes for the middle class and for the lower class, you know, and what they can afford. But you're not gonna put those taxes on us. And as Leona Helmsley said in the 1980s, right? Taxes were for common people, right? Because they, in their minds, are not common people. And so that's what. Then when you look at the flip side, because I'm always do that, right? I'm looking at classism and I'm looking at race. I'm looking at class and race, right? Race. I never forget. Back in the day, I saw this show, right? It was a Ricky Lake. If you all old enough to remember Ricky Lake, she had a talk show. I think it was Ricky Lake. Anyway, there was a white man, and he was talking about black people, and he was saying how there was a certain way black people and really all minorities, but particularly black people, needed to act. And they needed to act a certain way. And he was trying to say that black people needed to be more like white people and more acculturated. But when they broke it down and started, questioning that, it was really do as I say, not as I do. Because people started saying, okay, if we emulate you all, then at some point, if we're ever more around, should we enslave you all? Should we segregate ourselves? Should we do all of these institutional racism? Institute all of these institutional racism mechanisms against you? And his face got red and flustered. So there it was again, right? That do as I say, not as I do. I want you to act like us, but in a certain way, in a way that we want, and it pleases us, and it benefits us. But don't do as I do now. Just do as I say. And so that's uh that's that in terms of how I see that. Now
Okay.
on and we start talking about believing in your own foolishness, right? You gonna say B word, I'm gonna say foolishness, brother. You know me, I just don't use it. But anyway,
All good.
we all, right, have to be cognizant of not falling into that trap, right? We have to
Oh yeah,
all be able to
for sure.
call ourselves out, look ourselves in the mirror, and hold
For sure.
ourselves accountable, right?
For
And I
sure.
told you, me, uh, my biggest and the one that has resonated with me throughout my adult life was when I got incarcerated, right? That I couldn't blame my mother, couldn't blame my father, couldn't blame my friends, and had to call it like it TI is. Couldn't blame
Yeah.
the white man for that one either. You know, I did it to myself, and so I couldn't make these excuses for myself. I had to hold myself accountable. And in part of holding yourself accountable is to let go of some of that stuff that you know is foolishness, right?
Oh yeah.
Stuff that you have held on to, whether it's animosity, jealousy, envy, whatever it is personally, you got to let some of that foolishness go. You got to really let it all go as much as you can, but nobody is perfect. And so that comes down to not believing in your own foolishness, right? Holding yourself accountable, saying, yeah, that don't make no sense. Yeah, that was stupid. No, I can't keep doing that. Those types of things, right? Because the opposite of that is to quote unquote double down and keep going in that same ignorant path. And it's ignorant because you know better. Not saying you're ignorant, we're saying that is ignorant. And there's a big difference. Um, this accepting what people tell you. It's easier. It's easier for people to simply turn themselves into sheep and follow than put the work in to read, to research, and do your own critical and analytical thinking. And to me, it the reason this country has that problem with people just accepting what people tell them, right? And not doing their own due diligence, right? It is because we are, as I've heard different foreigners say, right? We are in a country and we are in a society that would much rather be entertained than educated. So we will allow someone else to educate us. And we end up just accepting whatever they say. And I mean, let's call it like it is. This is how cults are created, right? People break out of when we look at when we look at um, different instances and um, people who end up breaking away, particularly from these religious cults, right?
Check out Jim Jones. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, when we see
Okay.
yes, when we see people breaking out of those cults, it's
Uh huh.
because usually that cult leader said something or did something that was contradictory to what they read in the Bible.
That's a
So
fact.
they started doing their own what? Their own critical thinking, their own analytical thinking. And they didn't just accept what that cult leader was saying anymore. That they did
Right.
their own due diligence, they did their own work, you see. And that's usually how people end up breaking away from the cult, right? Because they do something that they've seen in the Bible that's wrong.
So
Or
check it
they
out.
and
Let
they
me
say
add. Let me add to that. AE. Can you
that
hear me?
doesn't say that. Go ahead.
Yeah. Let me add to that because that brings up. We running at 32 right now. We gotta speed it up a little bit.
Yes, sir.
So I got the next few points for us to get down on. I know you cook. You're doing great. Everything's
We
wonderful. I just
laugh.
wanted to expound upon that though when it
Okay.
comes to because can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, brother. I'm sorry.
Okay. So I have to make sure I don't get no double feed. So I got to I got to
Yeah,
make sure I tune in when I'm hearing you. Yeah. So the thing is, we got to bring it to the next what moment because it ties in exactly what you're saying. It means I'm done with being dumbed down. Just because that the culture, that whole do as I say, not as I do, that forces you. That it reminds me of this, of what brought about these people.
right.
Right, right. You know what I'm saying? So you have to understand what when a person is born with certain elements, there's certain genetic principles, when they rediscover their DNA, when they truly understand that no one, not even their mothers and their fathers, due to the lack of knowledge or information, when you understand you have those type of characteristics, you no longer have the ability to dumb yourself down. You just have to move forward in a way of purpose, like us. So that leads me to my next what moment. All lands have history. All lands have history. Hey, E, I want you to expound on this and a couple more. All lands have history. What if your ignorance of your history is your hindrance? Also, understand me and understand me well. Words have spells. When you try, and y'all can check me out in this, but one of my previous shows, Excavating America. Excavation doesn't mean just uprooting raw materials or, you know, basically adopting those raw materials from this culture and lying and saying it's from that other landmass or culture or place or thing. Because we understand that when you do that, you're implementing a form of, again, chaos. See? So words are spells when you misuse them, which is what Dr. AE, he knows I like to be a little profane sometimes. So, but his own walk of life has the ability to say, well, I can use the same verbiage to get to the same point and be just as effective. Kind of what my my mother and my aunties and my sisters and people that love me tell me. But hey, I'm my own person. I do what the fuck I want. But anyway, let's go. Next point. Done with the Columbus narrative. Just kind of over with it. So, Dr. AE, I would love for you to expound on my highlights, please, sir.
Okay, that last one, that done with. I think we are moving in that direction where we're done with Columbus, right? Columbus Day now is now recognized as Indigenous Day, right? Um, we now celebrate the indigenous people and the land, right? And the land itself prior to, let's call it like it is, European invasion, right? Because that's purely what it was. It was an invasion. And so that idea, right, of chaos, and that's the last point, and I think it leads right into that, right? Chaos is the way for the scavenger. By creating this chaos, right, it keeps people in fear. And you spoke about that a couple of shows back that you refuse to be a fear monger and live in fear. But that chaos is the root, right, of keeping that fear going, right? But see, when you put people in that position where they are fearful, right, that leads to them becoming better sheep, right? They're willing to listen to someone else. They're willing to let someone else lead them. And again, it becomes easier, right? It's easier just to let them lead you than digging deep, doing your own research, or digging deep and making the changes that you need, or having the self discipline to say, okay, I do need to sharpen this. I do need to read up on this myself. I do need to do this myself. You see, all of those things, right? So, chaos is a tool, right? It's not just the way, but it's a good pertinent tool that they use. And so we have to, only by enlightening yourself and educating yourself are you able to stay out of those that those quote unquote chaotic moments or those chaotic events and episodes where you find yourself in a position where you need to simply rely on someone else. We need I'm gonna give this one as an example, right? And I'm very proud of black people around the world. I'm very proud of the diaspora right now because the diaspora right now understands and recognizes what Brother Traoré is doing in Burkina Faso, right? And the movement that he's doing on the continent, where Africans are becoming far more independent and they are beginning to seek out ways to control their own destiny. And, you know, the uh, tangible way and the tangible part of that is controlling their own natural resources, controlling their own food supplies, not relying on Europe. And so black people around the world have recognized these European countries who are turning against Traoré and all of these different coups that are springing up against him. Last count that I know of was four, but I'm pretty sure I think they were talking about two others in recent times. And when I say recent, I mean within the last 6 to 8 months. But we definitely know that there have been four coups to overthrow this brother's power. But the fact that black people are supporting him and they called out this brother in the United States who went to this Senate hearing, this military, but I'm not even calling his name. I'm not giving him that much play. Who went there with those falsehoods saying that he was using the gold for his own benefit. Even though if that's what he wanted to do, he could do it. If the people in Burkina Faso don't have any problem with it, then uh, United States has no business calling him out, no business saying anything, because we've allowed these African dictators to ruin African countries to
Can I add to
Europe
that, brother?
and this government's benefit. Go ahead, brother.
Let me add to that. So I think the real point that we're trying to come across, and I think we nailed it tonight with getting the point across. Like you take Ibram Chador. He can't be looked he can't be looked at less than, he can't be looked down upon. He's a champion of his people. He's a champion of, you know, a continent of trying to basically uh, be a champion of his own nation. He's not putting himself before his people. He's practicing selfless tactics. He's not asking for war. What he wants to be is left alone. He wants peace. It's, if any person that carries this melanated material in their skin, I'm sure if you have experienced any turmoil, if you know anything about, historical equations and historical conflicts, we've had enough. Because one thing about the Caucasian, it loves war, even if it wars with itself. When it comes to a melanated being, we want peace to enhance and develop and achieve the highest of the heights, as we always have done in all, in every intrinsic part of time. Even when you have been told to pick up yourself by your bootstraps with no boots or straps. So understand me and understand me well. When it comes to the double standards of America, you have to wonder sometimes if you understood what being a creator is. A creator meaning yourself. You have the one ability to do one thing, plus some. But the one ability that you have to do and that you have is to create. You can be deaf, dumb, blind, and stupid and still create. But I can tell you one thing. What if you're conscious? What if you're precise? What if you're eloquent? What if you have been bestowed upon by the universe and the ancestors and all of the gods of how to be just that? As a being from the deep south, they call Florida the bottom. Doesn't cream always rise to the top? It ain't talking about nothing of the ilk of your equations. It's a figure of speech. Understand me and understand me well. When we're speaking of double standards in America, AE, I want you to tell me how, and we're going to close it out because this is very near and dear to me because this is one of your stories. You grew up on indigenous lands that your father owned, a farm. You know a whole lot about cultivating. You know a whole lot about making things come into fruition. How has how has that served you? Even living in a double standard America, especially even when the world knows your story now, and those that are not of your hue have a completely different outcome. You got the floor, and I'm gonna close the show after this.
I think the primary thing that I can say came out of that is the work ethic, right? Because in order to properly cultivate the things that you talk about when we're talking about tangible things on a farm, right? We're not just talking about vegetables, right? If you're going to take care of the livestock as well, which we did have, we had chickens, we had goats, we had cows, right? And so we had to nourish them, had to get the bales, feed the cows, had to feed the chickens. Um, even to this day, my parents no longer have the chickens, they no longer have the cows, but they still have the goats. And so um, they get when people manufacture and they break down their different vegetables, right? My father goes and he gets the byproducts, right? He gets all the stems from people who are breaking down their cabbage and breaking down their collard greens, right? He gets those stems, and that's what we feed the goats, right? And so it's still all the work, and of course, there's the work that goes in cultivating vegetables, right? And so the answer to your question is for me the work ethic that it leaves you with. That is the real root of what all of um, that cultivating and everything else does. It instills that work. It kind of reminds you of the famous, the movie where you see the Karate Kid with the wax on, wax off. Yeah, he ended up doing the whole backyard, but it actually taught him the techniques for life, right? And that's the whole thing, right? Working um, the way my father worked, and then the way he instilled that in me, and having to do all of those different chores. The lifelong wax on part of it was the work ethic, and that's what I
Absolutely.
away with the most.
Well, that's wonderfully said, brother. It's Monday. It's Monday, right?
It's Monday, brother,
Been Monday all day.
for
That goes
another.
to show how long my days have been. But this was a special this was a special event day because there was a whole great deal of a lot of it's a lot of turmoil going on. So I think it's time to, as Dr. A and I say, edutainment is something powerful because you get to laugh, you get to be joyous, and you also get to learn. So I hope you share. I hope you like. I hope you comment. I hope you subscribe. I hope you continue to do so. I hope you continue to reach into my big old archive now. I got hundreds of videos and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of shorts. I got over 500 and, after the night, 70 something shows. So it would be good for you to just, go ahead and partake, take a deep dive into the Wheel Is podcast, understand more about, what I do, understand about, well, more about what AE do, Dr. AE, Dr. Anthony Dixon. And just kind of like when we get his show up and running, just keep on, let's keep forging a path ahead. Let's keep learning, let's keep growing, let's keep building. and let's keep enhancing our minds because, you know, all of our paths, if we keep us focused, if we keep us focused, we'll have a strong, beautiful, wonderful path forward. Dr. A.E., any last thoughts, sir?
Well, that's the whole thing, right? By supporting, watching, and supporting the podcast, getting the books, supporting the projects. Again, for us right now, it's the Black Seminole Project, and there are other projects that are coming shortly thereafter. But all of that is also fostering that movement, right? That we need to have, right? It's fostering the movement that we need to have as a people to move our communities forward, as well as provide the plethora of generational wealth. That's not just the economic part of generational wealth. It's the self-knowledge. It's the cultural awareness. It's the unity that is so sorely needed. All of that is part of our full generational wealth. So supporting us, supporting the book. I see you got one of my books up. Supporting all of that supports the whole movement because it allows us to continue. You share the information, you share the knowledge, you support, and it's an overall effort in the entire movement that we wish everyone to take part of. So
Amazing, amazing,
I'm ready to
awesome,
go
wonderful.
say my God bless one love and let you do your thing.
My bad. I jumped the gun a little bit. Excuse me. Anyway, y'all, always check out and support my great brother, my doctor, uh, one of my confidants as well. You know, Dr. A.E. You know, we talk about a lot of things that move us forward, even in our personal, lives. Sometimes you need that person that you can lean on, and that person that's gonna always give you a positive mindset to move in the direction of success. And I think we try to provide that for each other. So again, that's the end of this show tonight. And I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Again, thank you. I appreciate you so much for subscribing. I appreciate you for loving the show. I appreciate you so much. But anyway, it's my favorite part of the show. Say it with me. The will is yours. Check y'all out tomorrow.